Hello, my dear students, which all of you find. I'm your host teacher, Ifatar Jahan, and today we are going to discuss about the manufacturing process of chocolate with some varieties. From our last class, we already know the basic parts of the chocolate. That is, what is cocoa powder, how we get chocolates, or how we can prepare chocolates from cocoa powder, or types or varieties. All of the things of cocoa beans we learned from our last class. And today we're going to know about the manufacturing process from the first part, as from harvesting of cocoa pods to preparing the chocolates. So let's get started. In manufacturing process, first of all, we divide the process in some categories, like, or some steps you can also say, like harvesting and fermenting the cocoa beans, then roasting, removal of shell and grinding of nibs, preparation of cocoa powder, then blending of different ingredients, then four more process or steps like conching, tempering, molding, and storing. First of all, that is harvesting and fermentation. In that step, actually, we harvest the cocoa pods from the tree, then we separate the beans from the cocoa pods, and after that, then that beans actually are left for fermentation for a week, sometimes for 2 weeks. And for that reason, that beans actually separated from the pods and just keep just that's like a baskets, and then it's just keep for fermentation for some days. And this fermentation actually very much necessary for the beans because it's develop the smell, taste, quality, and prevent them from germinating. And after fermenting, the beans are dried in the sun, and this reduces the weight of the beans and makes them less susceptible to molds. Like this, that is our first step. That is fermenting step. That all beans are separated from the pods and it's kept for fermentation. Then, after fermentation of 1 or 2 weeks, it's actually dried under the sun. And after sun drying, now the next step is roasting. For that reason, the all beans actually cleaning, inspecting, and sorting that which are good or which are bad, and then transport to the factory. And in the factory, these beans actually roasted almost for 30 minutes at a temperature of 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes it's higher. And this during this roasting, sometimes it's use different kinds of machines that it can rotate the beans again and again during reducing the moisture content. And at the time of roasting, the color changes to rich brown. With that, a characteristic chocolate aroma flavor actually develop in this step. After roasting process, now it's time for shell removal. It's like we remove the shell from the nuts, just like that. The cocoa beans are cooled quickly and their thin shells which have become brittle by roasting are removed. Okay, and for that reason, a giant winnowing machine actually used that passes the beans between serrated cones so they are cracked rather than crushed. Okay, just like that, it is a winnowing machine. From these types, from here, the cocoa beans are given, and by there are some shiver there, and within the machines it's a cracking down like that. It's actually not crushed, it's actually cracking. And after that, the thin shells are actually removed from the beans. And after removing from the shells, now the nibs actually, or the beans actually contain 54% cocoa butter, as you know from our previous class. And then it passes through a refining mills that ground actually the beans on the nibs, and there were some heavy steels there that grounding the nibs. Okay, and then here the cocoa paste is produced. Actually, the heat is generated from the grinders. It melted down all of the butter containing of the nibs. Okay, and then the chocolate liqueur or chocolate paste is produced. And if this paste is poured into molds, then we can get a chocolate, one kind of chocolate that is called unsweetened or bitter chocolate. Then now we prepare the cocoa liquid or chocolate paste. Now we can also prepare cocoa powder from this step. How it is? It's like that. After preparing the chocolate paste, this actually pumps the chocolate paste or chocolate liquid pumped into hydraulic pressure, weighing up to 25 tons. It's very heavy machines, and then the pressure is applied, and 80% cocoa butter is removed from the cocoa paste or chocolate liquid. Okay, and then that fat is drained away through a metallic screens, and we get a butter-like material. When it cool down and solidify, we get the cocoa butter. And the cake that is left after the removing or reducing the cocoa butter from the nibs or from the chocolate liquid, then it just dried and then crushed and milled to finally it shifted, and we get that cocoa powder. Our next step is blending step. Actually here it's vary industry to industry. Okay, it depends on the industry that which kinds of chocolate the industry is going to produce. Okay, if it is milk chocolate, then with the cocoa liquid it can add sugar, milk or milk powder with some butter, lecithin, and vanilla. In case of white chocolate, it actually sugar, milk, or milk powder, or cocoa butter, lecithin, and vanilla. That is a mistake. Cocoa liquid will not present there. And then plain dark chocolate. In case of that, cocoa powder, cocoa liquid, and cocoa butter, sugar, lecithin, and vanilla we will add there, but we will not add any kinds of sugar there. Okay, so it's depend or vary industry to industry which kinds of chocolate the industry is going to produce. Then our next step of chocolate manufacturing is called the conching steps. Okay, and it's a step where the chocolate mixture is intensively mixed again. It varies in within temperature. If it's a milk chocolate, the temperature will be 49 degrees centigrade. If it is a dark chocolate, the temperature will be higher at 82 degrees centigrade, and this conching machine actually mix the chocolate liquid with other ingredients from a few hours to several days. Okay, and this process develops flavor and changes the texture during controlled temperature. And if you go for what is a sponge, actually it's a container filled with metal blade, okay, which is act as grinder, or it has also rollers which actually used for mixing a homogeneous preparation. That means your sugar, your milk, cocoa butter, cocoa powder, all of the ingredients will be mixed continuously, and it will produce a homogeneous mixture. Okay, for example, if you go for example, Swiss and Belgian chocolates actually cones as much as 96 hours, and sometimes chocolates are not cones at all, or sometimes eat only for 4 to 12 hours. If you go for the process, how this conching process actually done, so it's like that. Under regulated speeds and temperature, the rollers of conching machines can produce different degrees of agitation and addition to create distinct chocolate flavor. During preparation of that agitation or that aeration, actually the bitterness totally removed from the chocolate. If anyone want additional cocoa butter and lecithin, they can also add it there to achieve the characteristic velvet smoothness. And during that homogeneity on mixer or mixing again and again all the ingredients, it's actually produce a soft film of cocoa butter around the small particles of cocoa powder. Okay, or we can also say that it's actually it's so much soft that it easily dissolves or melted in our tongue. Then our next process is tempering. Before that, it's a conching machine with that is a blade actually, and that is a roller. With that, the homogeneous mixture is prepared. Then our next step is called tempering. Okay, in that step, what happened actually? That is a step where actually chocolate is cooled down. Okay, in that step, the conch warm chocolate placed in a tempering machine so that it can be slowly and steadily cooled. Okay, steadily cooled. Why? Because in this process, whenever that is slowly and steadily cooled down, the large cocoa butter crystals actually repeatedly broken down and then reform again and again. This process is continuously going on. And what happened? For the present, the glaziness of cocoa butter is coming to the chocolate. And the flavor is also very good after the tempering stage. And that is the chocolate tempering. It can be manually done or it can be done by machines. Then our next step is molding. After tempered the chocolate, it's now for molding. It depends on the industry which will be molding. It can be, or which will be the molder. It can be many size from individual size, small size bars, or it can be a big size of bars, or it's a small chocolate. It depends on the industry and the molder. Then our next step before going to the flowchart, I just go for the last stage. That is our storing of the chocolate. Chocolate should be stored in a cool, dry environment. Preferably the temperature will be 15 to 19 degrees centigrade, and humidity of the room will be less than 50%, as it can absorb. Another important thing, chocolate can absorb different kinds of odor or flavor. So just be careful, everyone, whenever you will just preserve or store the chocolate, that any kinds of materials that chocolate can absorb the odor, you have to separate it from the chocolate, like soap. Okay, you cannot just keep the soap and chocolate in one place. So chocolate will just absorb the um, um, odors of soap, and it will be like soapy flavor then. So it's our manufacturing process flowchart. If you go from the first one, that is cocoa tree, then harvesting of cocoa pods, then we ferment, then drying and testing and cleaning, then the roasting stage, after that cracking and winnowing, and then nibs. There is a process called Dutch process. It's not the tough thing. It's actually there is some materials or some it's used there for uh, different kinds of different kinds of fermentation process, or for increasing the pH level. Actually, for increasing the pH level of the chocolate liquid, this process is used. And after this process, the chocolate actually liquid actually will be somehow or somewhat, it will be alkaline, like the pH level is increased from 5.5 to till 7, and the chocolate will color will also increase to a dark color, and flavor is also changes. It is a one kinds of process for producing actually chocolate liquid. Then grinding to produce chocolate liquid, and then if there are two processes, if it is a cocoa powder, then we know that press into cakes, then pulverizing, shifting cocoa powder and storage and shipping. And if it is a chocolate, then with that cakes, cocoa butter is added. Then additional ingredients, if you want sugar or milk or any kinds of flavor, you can add there. Then after refining, conching, tempering, molding, and our last stage is storing and shipping. That is our chocolate manufacturing process. Now we are going to read about some kinds of chocolate. What are they? First of all, unsweetened chocolate. We already know that whenever we prepare the chocolate directly from chocolate liquid, it will be unsweetened chocolate. It contains approximately 50% of cocoa butter. Then our bittersweet chocolate, it contains minimum 35% of chocolate liquid, and sometimes it vary with 50 to 70%. Okay. And after that, bittersweet chocolate, actually here it contains very low amount of granulated sugar, but sometimes additional cocoa butter can be used. Then semi-sweet chocolate, these kinds of chocolate actually vary all of the chocolate vary with the percentage of chocolate liquid, okay, and with the consistency or containing of the sugar amount or quantity, you can also say. In semi-sweet chocolate, the chocolate liquor percentage is 15 to 35%, but it contains more sugar than the bittersweet chocolate. And sweet dark chocolate, it actually contains as much as 70% of chocolate liquid, but it also contains more granulated sugar than the normal dark chocolate. Then our milk chocolate, it contains minimum 10% of chocolate liquid with minimum 12 to 20% of cream or milk solids. If it contains only chocolate liquid without milk solids, we cannot say that it's the milk chocolate. Okay. Then our white chocolate, as we mentioned that before, that white chocolate does not contain any kinds of chocolate liquid. So it contains only cocoa butter with sugar, cream, and vanilla. And that is the difference between milk and dark chocolate. We already know that milk chocolate contains at least 10 to 12% milk solid with 10% chocolate liquid, with additional ingredient will be lecithin, vanilla, and sugar. And in case of dark chocolate, it consists approximately 50% of cocoa butter, and it does not contain any kinds of um, milk or milk solids. Okay, and if it is a pure unsweetened dark chocolate, then it does not contain kinds of sugar. But if it is a sweet dark chocolate, it will contain sugar. So that was our chocolate manufacturing process with the varieties, which we are clear about the process and varieties, and we will discuss it more in our next class. Thank you.